When it comes to the testing, approval or inspection of construction products and fire protection systems, the topic of the accreditation comes up immediately. But what exactly does accreditation mean? Which role does it play in the entire process, and why should you rather spend your money on accredited services? You will get the answers in this webinar. Let's take a closer look at this topic using IBS as an example. Let us start with the question of what accreditation actually means exactly. Well, accreditation formally confirms us as IBS that we fulfill the applicable requirements for qualification and equipment as a testing, inspection and certification body in our field of activity. Accreditation must therefore be clearly delineated from certification, for example, according to ISO 9001, while accreditation is the confirmation and approval of professional competence for certain tasks. Certification confirms that certain requirements are complied. Accreditation is issued by the national accreditation body in Austria. And that's where the problem starts. There is not the one accreditation. Rather, accreditation is only ever granted for standards on the basis of which a certain area of activities can be covered. Let's have a look to our example of IBS again. IBS is accredited for 3 different standards. Testing body according to EN ISO IEC 17025, inspection body according to EN ISO IEC 17020, and a certification body according to EN ISO IEC 17065. According to EN ISO IEC 17025, the following field of activities is covered: construction materials and components testing, approval of fire protection systems, whether detection or suppression systems, as according to EN ISO IEC 17020, the following fields of activities is covered: the inspection of technical fire protection systems, for example, inspection of fire detection and exhausting systems, or sprinkler systems. The inspection of construction products, for example, the productions of manufacturers of building products, and finally, according to EN ISO IEC 17065, the certification of construction products is covered. This leads us to the first central point that distinguishes accredited bodies such as IBS is an accredited inspection body from common engineering offices. It's the scope of accreditation. That means the standard to which IBS is accredited must of course be complied with. In addition, there are technical regulations such as national technical guidelines. Accredited bodies also remain up to date. They are required to always work with the latest standards and guidelines in the accredited scope. This means that they independently ensure that they are always up to date. The second major difference is the quality management system that must be implemented in the accordance with the standard. The focus is on the professional competence of the employees, their independence, impartiality, confidentiality and integrity. as well as an appropriate training and continuing education program. The tasks, responsibilities and authorities are specifically defined in a job description in the Quality Management Manual, depending on the area of activity, and must be reviewed and documented annually in a monitoring process. Also important is in this context is the organizational structure, which is aligned in a way that there are employees or supervisors who are bound by instructions and those who are not. This ensures absolute integrity, and there cannot be an indirect influence via official channels. The issues of the liability and financing are also covered accordingly. Example of tasks to be performed at IBS in the accreditation areas. For example, implemented of final inspections, fire detection systems, fire control systems, smoke and heat exhausting ventilation systems, testing of systems and system components, of technical fire protection, issuing of reports within the scope of technical components, and many more. In addition, an accredited body must comply higher requirements regarding the measuring and testing equipment, the premises, the personnel and the environmental conditions, so that tests can be reproduced anytime. The third part concerns the monitoring. On the one hand, this is carried out by regular intervals by the company's quality management officers as part of an internal audit. On the other hand, an external monitoring is carried out by the Accreditation Austria. The last part concerns the topic of the documentation. In the example of IBS, as an accredited inspection body, the inspection reports and certificates must contain a certain number of details and fulfill formal requirements. This ensures the appropriate quality of the documentation. The minimum requirement for reports is above all that the test results must be presented accurately, clearly, explicit and objectively. For example, this is what an inspection report looks like. The following general requirements are important: title, name, address of the laboratory, place of inspection, name, contact details of the customer, designation of the procedure used, description, designation of the test item, date of the test, date of the report, results, additions, deviations, and persons responsible. These demonstrated points are not only the quality characteristics of accredited bodies, but at the same time represent the additional value you get for your money. You have a new product for which there is no standard yet. No problem. Therefore, we also deal with the non-accredited field of activity with a third-party approval. At IBS, we handle approval tests for a brand new products for which we first have to develop test scenarios. However, this also means that these tests cannot result in an approval report, but only in a test report without accreditation sign. This report does not have to be recognized by other accredited bodies. You want to know more about how this works? We will show you using the example of Drillix. With the drill extinguishing device Drillix from the manufacturer Synextech, the fire department can drill through the source of the fire and at the same time smother the fire by means of evaporation and bind toxic smoke gases. In this way, fires can be extinguished without having to enter the fire room. On the part of IBS, the challenge has to be to develop valid test scenarios for the Drillix extinguishing device in order to prove its extinguishing effectiveness. This is because there have not yet been any applicable norms and standards for approval tests on the market for such an innovation. The tests that were subsequently carried out by the Institute proved that the method actually works. Drillix uses 70% less water because the fire is smothered more quickly due to the lower oxygen supply. And at the same time, the temperature in the fire room is 50% lower. This is how successful cooperation works. And therefore, the ACR Innovation Award was received in October 2022. This leads us to the end of our webinar on what does accreditation mean. In our upcoming webinars, we will present the individual accredited areas in detail. At the next, the EN ISO IEC 17025 accredited testing laboratory and the EN ISO IEC 17020 accredited inspection body. Join us and get to know everything you need about the respective accreditation area.